Lucas with Big Future. Now, I talk about reality a lot because one of the things I find that's really interesting about reality is that I think that we all live in different realities. So every human being lives in a different sort of time stream, a different reality where they experience different things and you experience different things. And sometimes people who live together might experience similar things. Families might experience similar things, but every human being, every individual human being has experienced different things throughout their lives. So they all live a different reality. And because this reality occurred in the past, then that is a reality that occurred in the past, and that reality may not occur again. I've said this before in a number of different shows. But if you think about it, when you think about AI, when you mash up AI with this concept that everything is a different reality, then how can you possibly come up with unbiased AI? Because AI is always biased to history. If you go back and look at what happened before and you base your decisions based on what happened before, then you're going to be wrong 100% of the time. And you know why? Because like I said, the past is a completely different reality from the present and the future. Past results do not necessarily indicate future success because those are completely different realities. And this is why it's so truly difficult to remove bias from AI. Because if you think about it, AI can only look at what's happened already. It's big data, right? It looks at historical data, it looks at trends, it looks at things that have happened already, and it patterns its decisions based on what's happened already, assuming that those things are going to happen again. But the problem is that in a lot of cases, those realities will never repeat. What happened last year may never happen again, and the year before that also may never happen again. I mean, look at last year. Last year, we had COVID-19, we had the coronavirus. That changed all sorts of data for all sorts of things. Because if you look at last year and you try to calculate what happened this year, what's going to happen this year based on what happened last year, you're going to get a completely different set of things because that reality is completely different from this reality. It works the same with bias. Let's say you're looking at a database of software developers that you've hired. If you take that database of software developers that you hired and you feed it into a system, then the AI is just going to give you more people just like that system created. Now, if you believe the system be successful, then isn't that what you're expecting? Whatever comes out of the system is going to be, you're going to get more of the same. But what if you don't want? But the problem is that this new reality and last year's reality are completely different realities. You have to debias your AI prediction model for the future. So instead of looking at a historical past and saying we want to duplicate the successes of the past, what you have to do is you have to create a synthetic version of the past which mimics the future that you want if you're going to use the same kind of predictive models which work on historical data, because most of these things do work on historical data. How do you think AIs learn? They learn by looking at things that have already happened. And that's how human beings learn too. We look at things that have already happened and we compare those things that have already happened to what's happening in front of us now, and we intake this new information and we use it to learn new things. And this is how AI needs to work too. However, the problem is like I said, they're based on historical data, historical biases, historical information, realities that do no longer exist and will no longer exist is what they're basing their decisions on. Now, the thing about human beings is that we can look at that and we can say, you know what, this is not the same time as it was back then. Brand new things are happening, and we can take those new things and process them as part of what we're doing. But AI can't do that because it doesn't have the critical thinking to be able to think into the future and go and think of a future that is not patterned on the past. So really what we need to do is, if we want a different future reality, then we need to make sure that our past reality is not the same as the reality that we're seeing. So we need to generate a new synthetic history for our AIs to look at. And this new synthetic history needs to go in the direction that we want it to go in the direction of the reality that we're looking at. So I'm seeing that there's opportunities here. There's opportunities for startups founders to actually generate synthetic historical data which points towards trends that we feel are going to happen based on our future predictions of where things are going to go. We need to create that historical data, this synthetic historical data, which replicates our ideal reality, and feed that into the AI to get the trend of the future. Or am I wrong?